In the meantime, handing it over to our managing editor, Zakka for this exclusive conversation with the Israeli ambassador to India.
So it's been 100 days since this war in Iran began, and clearly there has been on again, off again, the ceasefire in effect for some time, and then there are threats of the ceasefire breaking. Just in this past week, we've seen multiple attacks in the region as well. And just this morning, President Trump again announcing on Truth Social that he's holding back on operations because he believes they are very close to a deal, if not having clinched a deal already. Let's try and make sense of this. I'm joined by Mr. Reuven Azar, the ambassador of Israel to India. Thank you very much for joining us on Times Now. I mean, we've heard this since the start of this war, I think 20 or 30 times from President Trump that we're at a deal, we've got a deal. First he threatens, and then at the last minute he backs off from the threat. What is your understanding of whether Israel is on board this process? Where are we as far as an agreement is concerned? Is it on the table yet? He says we could see a signing ceremony in Europe in the next few days. Is Israel aware?
It's like, first of all, yes, we are in sync and we are talking all the time. Prime Minister Netanyahu is speaking with President Trump almost on a daily basis. But on top of that, look, it's very clear, Zakka, since the outset that the Iranians could have reached this deal even before military operations started. And it's their intransigence and their this kind of violent operations they've been conducting, trying to punch above their weight in order to try to get the United States to give up their effort and remain the hegemonic power in the region. So that is not going to happen. I think that if I look at it from as an observer point of view, is that, you know, the United States is using power as much as it sees fit, but without crushing the Iranian side, because no doubt that the United States has the capability with all its military might to do much more than that. But I think that they are not using force just to use force, but to reach a diplomatic solution.
No, but Ambassador, many would argue the contrary seems to have happened. It seems like Iran has come out victorious. They can now shut off the Strait of Hormuz almost at will. They are any more closer to acquiring a nuclear weapon, or at least the ability to have a nuclear weapon, than before the war began. And the most important thing, there's been no regime change.
Well, first of all, it depends how much you believe Iranian propaganda, because when you look at the situation in the region, you had before the 7th of October, an Iranian regime that was having an army of proxies in the region that was capable of hitting with their proxies any point in Israel or the Middle East. Now you have Hamas in Gaza decimated, you have Hezbollah degraded substantially, you have no longer Iranian rule over Syria, okay? And you have the Iranian two existential threats that were looming against us and the region removed. The military nuclear threat, yes, they are negotiating now only the removal of fissile material and the ban of enrichment, but they no longer have the capability to break out or sneak out the nuclear weapon in matters of weeks, like they were doing a year ago.
You're saying Iran...
One second. I didn't finish. And then their ballistic missile program, and especially the ballistic missile industry, is decimated. No longer Air Force of Iran, no Navy of Iran. And when it comes to the Straits of Hormuz, yes, they used it once in order to extort the international community. But what is going to be the price for the longer term? First of all, they have an American naval blockade, and they are not able to export oil. They depend 80% of their budget in exports of oil. So they are lacking now $80 billion of income, okay? In addition to that, all the countries in the region are going to draw the conclusions, and they are not going to be dependent on the Straits of Hormuz in the future, because they are going to continue building infrastructure.
But tell me about
to evade it.
About the Strait of Hormuz. Just recently, we have had attacks on Indian seafarers, not necessarily Indian ships or Indian flagged ships. 3 Indian seafarers have died. Many are saying that, look, this is because of the blockade. The blockade should have never been there. The shutting off of the Strait of Hormuz should have never happened in the first place. But 3 Indian sailors are dead. I mean, what would you say to them, to their families?
Well, first of all, this is very tragic, and this is not the first time. I must remind you that the Houthis have abducted Iranian sailors almost 3 years ago, that an Iranian sailor was killed by an Iranian missile in the Straits of Hormuz, in the northern part of the Straits of Hormuz in the past. So they are terrible consequences for war. But this war could have been avoided if we had in Iran a constructive regional player and not a player that is trying to build weapons of mass destruction and to control the entire region. So I think that there is a way out of this, thanks to the fact that neither we, nor the United States, nor the rest of the international community are willing to surrender. You know, they were talking very high about this, about that they are going to control and collect fees on the Strait of Hormuz. It's not going to happen.
It's not going to happen?
Of course not. Nobody's going to agree to that. They don't have the might to impose it. And nobody is going to agree to it because it counters customary law, maritime law. And India has been very clear about that.
India has been very clear about it. What I want to know from you is, you know, the ships that were attacked, the Indian sea sailors or the seafarers who died, were not killed by Iranian fire. They were killed by American hellfire. I mean, that doesn't give confidence in a country like India that, you know, we're supporting Israel so much, we're supporting America so much, and what do we get in return?
Well, I think that you have to look at the wider picture. I think that thanks to the increase in production of oil and gas by the United States, following also the exit of the UAE from OPEC, we are no longer going to see a future in which OPEC is going to be able to choke the rest of the world with prices that go to $100 plus, because that's what they want. Because the United States and other players have taken out this capability. So you're right that, you know, at the beginning, before the crisis, the prices of energy were very low thanks to the increase in American production. But if you would have an American president that would ban production or exports like we had in the past, then the prices would even be higher than we have now. So what we see here is a crisis is being conducted without the prices going out to 250, but they are now about 85. So it means that something is being done right, and there is, I think, a lot of attention to the needs of the world, but those needs cannot become on the account of creating a threat that is completely unacceptable for conducting normal life of countries in the region.
So I want to come back to a point that you made in one of the earlier answers. You believe that Iran significantly now has reduced the ability to possess a nuclear weapon? That's what you said? That
Absolutely.
Iran's ability to possess a nuclear weapon has been significantly cut down.
And I can elaborate.
So why don't you end the war then? That was the number one objective.
Right,
the war is still on.
Well, first of all, the intensive part of the military operations,
is over.
Is over and was over many weeks back.
April 8th, I think, the ceasefire.
The second thing is that we have to make sure that they don't go back to produce nuclear weapons. So I think that it is a fair attempt to create agreement on the removal of fissile material, a ban on enrichment, because Iran has been cheating the international community, and the IAEA has been very clear about that. So I think that if we want to have stability for the longer term, it is better to do a diplomatic effort to get the Iranians to comply with the will of the international community when it comes to preventing the production of nuclear weapons.
Are America and Israel on the same page on the question of, this agreement? President Trump has publicly said this, that Prime Minister Netanyahu, he's called him expletives and so on. He says that he should stop any further Israeli attempt to bomb Lebanon and will only isolate Israel further on the global stage. I don't want to go into the details of the phone call that they had, but are America and Israel on the same page on how this war concludes?
Well, you can draw the conclusion from the fact that we are continuing to operate against Hezbollah in southern Lebanon. We have a common interest with the Lebanese government, okay? And
but
we have
President Trump has specifically told Prime Minister not to attack Lebanon, and he's still gone ahead and attacked.
Well, first of all, we have the capability to bridge over differences that we have from time to time. And the right tactical moment to start operations to stop them is something that we discuss on almost, as I said, daily calls that we have with the president. So the fact that the president has been very transparent on, projecting the different situations and the tactics of that doesn't mean that we cannot bridge.
But why does Israel want to continue attacking Lebanon?
Well, first of all, we are not attacking Lebanon. We are attacking Hezbollah We are defending ourselves, and by the way, we are also defending Lebanon, because the government of Lebanon, for the first time, is a government that actually wants to get Hezbollah disarmed and has been very clear about the lack of agreement, their agreement, to have Tehran to call the shots in Lebanon.
But you've been attacking Beirut as well. It's not just you're attacking southern Lebanon.
Well, first of all, we are going to attack Hezbollah wherever we see fit, because Hezbollah has been building this capability against us for years. They want to rebuild their capability, and what we are doing now is that we are removing their infrastructure from the other side of the border. We have removed their anti-tank missile threat against our communities. We are now dealing with different threats like the drone threat, and we are continuing to dismantle, tunnels in the Beaufort and other places in the Alitar Mountains. We are going to continue doing that because we feel in Israel, A, that we can no longer, live with this threat from Hezbollah, but more so, we have a common interest with the Lebanese government, with the United States and the rest of the world, to try to stabilize Lebanon and get the Lebanese government to have sovereignty over its own territory. We don't have any territorial claims over Lebanon.
Can I say something to a neutral observer in India, who obviously, India has very close ties with Israel, with the Gulf region as well. It seems to us in these last 3 months, President Trump wants to end this war. Of course, the terms of ending the war are still being negotiated, but he certainly wants to end the war. And Prime Minister Netanyahu does not want to end the war. And every time there seems to be a lull, he goes and attacks Lebanon, or he attacks Iran, or he attacks, one of the Iranian proxies in the region. It seems like this is a good cop, bad cop act that's going on.
No, I don't think so. Look, we are taking action when we are being attacked. I must remind you that on the 3rd of March, Hezbollah again unilaterally attacked Israel. We didn't attack Hezbollah. We did a strike against Iran, and they decided to attack us without consulting with the Lebanese government. So this story that Israel wants to attack proxies when it's not attacked, that's not true, okay? So we have to remain focused on the goals that we have. This has been the longest war in the history of Israel. And believe me, that neither Prime Minister Netanyahu, nor the government, nor our military or citizens are wishing to continue this war. We want to end it, but we want to have a political outcome. And we are seeing very clearly that in Gaza we have succeeded to have a political path that now Hamas has to comply or to continue living isolated. We are beginning to have a political path in Lebanon because we are negotiating a peace agreement with the Lebanese government. Could you imagine before the 7th of October that would happen? So I think that we are on a good track when it comes to this negotiation with Lebanon. We'll have to figure out how international players can contribute in order to help the Lebanese army to get rid of Hezbollah, at least in the south. And when it comes to Iran, the United States now is leading the effort. They are consulting with us, but at the end of the day, it's up to them to decide when they are going to get to an agreement with Iran. It might require more pressure.
What are the conditions? So no nuclear weapon or ability to produce a nuclear weapon, no enrichment, but Iran says that's for our civilian purposes. You've also said Strait of Hormuz should be open and free, which again, the rest of the world, including India and China, have said.
We don't have forces at the Strait of Hormuz, and we don't have an interest there. I think this is an international interest, and what is very important there is to make sure that Iran doesn't use this threat again in the future. The fact that nobody is going to comply with their ridiculous claims of, the toll, it tells you something. So this is something that I think it's important for the international community. This is not a threat on Israel.
When the Iranian foreign minister was here in India last month, and he had a public press conference on this, and he said, we're willing to give this nuclear fissile material to a third country, to Russia or any other third country, but the United States and Israel say no. Why?
Well, look, I think that we do not know the details of the negotiation at this point. We also don't know what this document includes, although there have been several leaks. I think that what is very evident in answering your question is that we will not agree for Iran to continue enrichment activity or to keep the fissile material. They have to agree to that. I think that the United States is going to be stubborn on that. And then the question of the proxies and the ballistic missile also remain there. So we don't know when the United States is going to make decisions. Yesterday,
But
only yesterday, Prime Minister Netanyahu issued a statement saying that we trust the American effort and the American insistence on these issues.
No, but I think President Trump and his people have been saying that we could expect some kind of an agreement to be signed as soon as the next few days in Europe. Is Israel aware of it? Is Israel on board with such an agreement?
Well,
and what will that agreement continue?
Israel is not part of that agreement. We will continue having a monopoly on our right of self-defense.
Sure.
And we'll see. We'll judge according to the outcome. We're continuing our conversations with the United States. I think that we know what's going on. And whatever happens, the Prime Minister will have to report to the cabinet. We'll have to make decisions on how
At the end of this war, whenever that might be, would Israel be safer and closer to some of the Gulf Arab countries, or would you be worse off? Because it seems like Iran is now establishing the rules of engagement, or at least changing the rules of engagement in your region.
Again, if you want to believe that,
that's
you're entitled.
fine.
No problem. But Israel is already much safer. Because first of all, we don't have a threat against our communities in the south. Our southern border is completely secure. The level of threat against our communities in the north is much lower. Okay, and when we have managed to remove these two immediate existential threats, the nuclear military threat and the threat of 10,000 ballistic missiles from Iran that could be fired against Israel at any moment. All these threats are removed, so Israel not only is much safer, the Israeli economy is doing great. Okay, we have already passed the $700 billion mark. The GDP per capita in Israel is almost $70,000. In 2025, we had almost $100 billion of foreign investment. Okay, so that tells you nobody invests that kind of money in countries that are not safe. So Israel now is much safer.
Okay, Ambassador Reuven Azar, we'll leave it at that. Thank you very much for joining us here on Times Now. So the Israeli ambassador to India, Mr. Azar, confident that whatever the terms of this agreement that is being negotiated currently between America and Iran, of course mediated by some of the Gulf Arab countries, Israel will have a sign-off on it, and he says the contours could be decided in the next few days, as has been said by Mr. Trump and his administration officials. We'll track that very closely because India has a very big stake in this war ending, and this war ending quickly. It's gone on for well over 3 months now. We'll take a quick break, but news and updates continue right on the other side on Times Now.